Okay, so recently got an email from a client that we'd recently done quite a bit of work with, a series of training events that over the course of about 3 months. He had a couple of simple questions. He said, Paul, why does my certificate say certificate of attendance as opposed to certificate of completion? So that sounds like I just showed up. We did a lot of work and projects and that kind of thing. I didn't know the answer to that question. His next question was that you also said something about that we would get credit at Georgia Tech for completing this, and how do I go about pursuing that? So the second part I could answer directed him to the PE site, which gives, here's where you ask for your continuing education units and your summary of those things. The first one I sent to my boss and a colleague and said, how do I answer this question? I honestly don't know. Why does it say attendance rather than completion? Two answers I got back were, it says attendance because PE will not allow us to say completion because theirs say completion and we can't use that word. The second one was, by the way, the person is not going to get any continuing education units because you didn't put his date of birth on the attendance sheet. So they're not going to create a student record. PE will not allow that. And so I just got infuriated sitting at my computer because for 19 years I've been hearing about what PE will do and won't do and what they will allow and won't allow in exchange for the money that we give them. So am I by myself in this frustration with PE? Okay, thank you.
Heck no.
Thank you for voting on that. So rather than simply complain about, and we could do a lot of that, rather than complain about this situation, what I'd like to propose is that we build a new and mutually beneficial relationship with this organization that we need to continue to work with. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I want to go through three things that we really want to talk about. One is, what is the value that we get in exchange for the money that we pay PE? Are we getting good value for the money that we pay? How does that work? The second thing is, what does PE need from us? And I don't think we really know that. I strongly suspect that they have a long list of grievances with us, that we're difficult to work with in some way that we're not aware of. They probably have such a list. And then thirdly, I want to talk about the resource that's available to us at Georgia Tech called the Georgia Tech Strategic Consulting Office, which is in existence for exactly the purpose of solving the kind of problem that we're dealing with. So let's talk about this idea of the value of what we get out of PE. So you may or may not know this, but for every dollar that you bring in as a project, depending on the circumstances, between 10 and 30% of that money comes right off the top and goes to PE. So what do we get in exchange for that? We make our own certificates, by the way. They don't do that for us, and they tell us what we can and can't put on it. I'll get off that. What they do is collect our money. They send invoices to our customers. Customers send the money to them, and so that's good, except that we typically get and frequently get complaints from customers about late deliveries of invoices. Please pay us. It's very embarrassing to get a call from a client saying, hey, we have never gotten an invoice. Could you please ask us for money? That's a pretty terrible thing to hear because you're talking to us about process improvement, and I'm not sure that you people know what you're doing. That's a hard question to get. We have gotten multiple invoices for the same work. Even those that have been paid, we've asked them to pay again. We have gotten very late and non-existent invoices, so there's a lot of issues going on there. We also have some very specific and non-negotiable requirements of our own staff that we must do certain things that we nor our clients seem to have any value in. So we don't see why that's being done, but we must because we're told we must. So there's a lot of issues there. What that does is take away our time so that we're not able to carry out our mission because we're performing this non-value added work. So we have a lot of things, we have a lot of issues with our friends at PE. What we don't know is what their long list of issues would look like. So let's talk about that for a minute. This is our yada, yada, yada. So what I'd like to do is propose that we figure out a way to work with strategic consulting to resolve this issue. that we would never allow this level of process dysfunction and inefficiency in a client organization. If they came to us and said, well, how do we get these two parts of the organization to work together? We would know exactly how to solve that. We would know what to do. And so I'm proposing that we begin to use our own expertise to resolve that issue in the same way that we've done before. So we've done a lot of projects internally with Georgia Tech before strategic consulting was in existence. We did a lot of those projects with the Department of Housing, with financial aid, with several others on campus to do the types of things that we're discussing here. So we know this can be done. We know it should be done. So what I'm suggesting is that we pursue this not only for our own self-interest, but for that of Georgia Tech and for our clients as well. Thank you.
Here, here.